Welcome back to Swanson's Garage, everybody. Hope you're doing well with your projects. I'm doing pretty good here. I am starting to work on firewalls and related firewall stuff. Lower dash panel, like we've talked about in the past. I got this firewall mocked up on the tractor, cleaned up the hardware for that. Rounded up the hardware for the other tractor. We'll have to make one bolt. One was broken. I got some new round-headed machine bolts in my order list. So get some of those coming. I think we will mark out and cut out their second lower panel. Get that project done. I just had to comment again on how crude this stuff is cut out. I mean, there's burrs still on here. There's edges. I mean, these aren't even remotely, get a straight edge here, aren't even remotely straight cuts. So I'm torn. The OCD in me wants to make these all laid out perfect and, you know, what they should be, nice rounded corners. But the originality side of me goes, well, that's how they were from the factory. That's how it should be made again. So I'll probably split the difference a little bit. I think I'll make mine maybe just a little bit nicer than this one. But just goes to show that sometimes things can be better than what they even were new. We'll get that done. We can get those sandblasted up then. Getting these dashes tuned up. I took off some of the sharp corners on this one. I straightened out this. It was bent up a little bit. I got that straightened out last night. I will probably remove these serial number tags put them away for safekeeping. So when I get the dash and stuff sandblasted, it doesn't wreck them. Plus I want to be able to get paint back behind there. I'll get some new, these little drive rivets or whatever they call them, drive nails, drive screws. They just push in there so we can put it back on. We'll be able to keep track of which dash is which because the controls are different for the 26 here with the 2 quadrants versus the 25 has 1 quadrant and the little lever for that side. Which, by the way, I am missing the correct control quadrant for the 25 because it is different than the 26 quadrants. And of course, it's different than other models of tractors too, like the 1525 quadrant controls are completely different than the long fender controls. They are opposite. So those will be upcoming future projects here. We'll probably tear into them pretty soon. We'll have to figure out how to make some new tags because this one's all cracked up and broken and that one's all cracked up and broken. So we'll have to fabricate some new tags there. That'll be an interesting little project to get all that writing, figure out how to do that. But yeah, if anybody has, not these are for the 26, but if anybody has the control for a 25, by whatever slim chance that somebody has one kicking around, very interested in that. I will put a picture here of Dave Harrington's quadrant so you know what it looks like. So yeah, that's what I'm looking for there. If anybody happens to have one, let me know. I did pick up, you've probably seen here, a trunk of steel. That's at 18 gauge for fabricating gas tanks out of. So we can get back to that project one of these days. Been thinking about this and your guys' comments, and I think I might change my approach. I don't know if I'm going to actually use this hammer form method or not, or if I'm going to try making an actual press form. Now that I have a press available here, I don't know. I'm still kind of batting around those ideas, but we will get back to that project here eventually. Before that, I picked up a new tool, just a Harbor Freight special. And I picked this up for cutting out sheets and whatever. Supposedly it cuts all the way up to 14 gauge. That's pretty hard to believe. I mean, that's pretty thick steel. But as long as it does whatever the 18 gauge, I'll be happy with. We got one at work, not this brand, but one just like it, and it works pretty slick. So I figured I'd pick myself up one. Makes life a lot easier. So let's get something done here. Got the tag removed. 21.2 is off of the 25. And 21.473 is off of the 26. You can see those little drive screws better now. It's got little spiral shanks on them, so when you drive them in there, they hold fast. Put those away for safekeeping now. Got the lower panel cut out. It went pretty good. I'll just do a little bit of final cleanup on both of these, sandblast, and we can move on to the next thing. So that was interesting. Came out here a couple hours ago to start working on, figured my goal would be to start disassembling these quadrants and figuring out a game plan, whatever. Just as I was getting set up, power went out. And the power's been out for, it just came back on, so it's probably out for almost a couple hours. It's like, that kind of limits what a guy can work and do. Luckily it wasn't too long, being wintertime, it's a bad time for the power to go out. Kind of depend on that for heat and whatnot. Anyway, let's see if we can get all these controls freed up and taken apart. Well, it happens. I got this apart, but it wasn't without casualty. Colorful words were exchanged. I'm not happy about it, but what's done is done. I was being careful, but I guess not careful enough. Could probably fix it. Another good excuse to, experiment with it. The silver lining is there's probably good ones on the Michigan parts tractor that we can use. Still just makes me mad. I don't like breaking irreplaceable parts. I got this one stripped down. Of course, we sacrificed the cross pin. That's no big deal. We can make a new one of them. Got the tags off. You can see why we got to make new ones. This one's about 4 pieces. And is about the same. So looking at making some new tags. Dad and I were talking about that. We got to thinking, maybe gotta find a place that does like trophy tags. They might be able to make something like that. We might be able to, if I can get a itty bitty little end mill the size of those letters, there's a chance I might even be able to do it at our CNC at work. But more research on that is needed. But in lieu of our happenings here, let's say, I think I'm going to walk away from this for a while and maybe come back to it another day. Okay, it is several days later. I am not as mad. Let's see if we can get this one apart today without breaking anything. That's the goal. Well, when I started this, it was light out. And it's dark out now, so that'll tell you how well this afternoon has been going. But I did win. I got it apart. It was a struggle, but I got it apart. Got the tags off, and I got them duct taped to a little piece of cardboard to keep all the pieces together. There's actually 3 that need to be made. I think it's this one. Looks good, but it's actually cracked in the middle around that seam. When you flip it over, you can tell. So we'll probably end up just making all new ones when we get to that point. It was a real struggle getting that pivot pin out again. Ended up putting it in the press, trying to press it each way a little bit. Of course, it mushroomed the ends at that point, which we knew that was going to happen. But then I did the old cut it off, cut it, file it flush trick so they knew there was no mushrooms. And then took a punch and was trying to press it. Got it to move maybe a 1/4 inch. I knew it wasn't stuck, but it was in there hard. I was already using more pressure on the press than I was comfortable with. And after already breaking parts there the other day, I don't want to break any more. So we switched tactics, and I ended up clamping this in the drill press and drilling out the majority of the pin and then driving out the little bit that was left of it. So that's okay. We'll make a new pin there. Took a while to get. So how this little tooth works on this lever that goes in these little notches on the side of the quadrant to keep that lever located is let's look at this one. The parts are better. There is a little tiny spring that goes in the bottom of that bore, which gets held in place by a tiny little cross pin that goes through. So I drove that out to get the spring out, and then the little tooth is slotted to go over that pin, this way actually, over that pin. That's what keeps it from rotating, as well as keeping the pin in place. And then the tooth can't come all the way out because it's up against the quadrant. So for a simple little thing such as a lever on a quadrant, there's a lot of little parts. So this one, the spring was nothing but a pile of rust and junk. The cross pin's pretty bad, the tooth is pretty bad, so we'll be making some new parts there. I'll have to see if I can find that spring available that's in that size, and if not, we'll be making some. We've made springs in the past on the channel. Got to make the new pivot pins. That's pretty easy. That's just a straight with 2 holes in it. We'll end up making a couple new springs for the little flippers, because those are pretty crusty, pretty good chance those are going to break. There again, we've actually made those exact parts before for the 2035, which has a very similar quadrant. So we can do that. To clean up the rest of these parts and see if anything else. I'm thinking all the rest of these will be okay once we clean them up and chase the threads and whatnot. Run all these parts through the sandblaster. Hopefully one of the Michigan tractors will have a good arm we can salvage, and if nothing else, we can practice our welding and or brazing abilities on that. It's a good thing to learn on because we don't have a lot to lose. So in the interest of getting as far as I could on these quadrants, today I ran everything through the sandblaster, and I just got done cleaning up threads, new lock washers. I'm going to order a few new bolts because 3 of these are pretty crusty. One is okay. Cleaned up all the other threads, cleaned all the bores out of all the little holes. I did locate the little tiny spring, got that in my order list, and I got some stock to make the little plunger tooth and little cross pin. And I was just looking at, I had some of the size that it's supposed to be for the pivot pin here, but I think we'll go a little bit oversized to tighten up some of this. It's a little on the sloppy side, and I think we can do a little bit better than that. So I'll try to see if I can get some little bit oversized stuff for that. And there again, we're at kind of a waiting game on this until we get some materials and parts and whatever. So I think I'm going to pack all this stuff back away, put it on the shelf, and move on to the next thing. I wanted to mention that I video chatted with Dad today. He was out in the garage working on disassembling the Michigan parts tractor clutch. He's got it all apart now. That came apart really well. There was some damage on that tractor. One of these ears on this part is broken on that tractor, and some of the pins are actually like broken, so that tractor must have been through some significant trauma as well, much like this one was. But there's at least one good pin in the bunch to replace this Farmer Fix pin. This part, where we had that loose pin in this one, this part, as far as we know on the Michigan tractor, is good. So we have options there. We could either fix this one or potentially swap parts there. So that covers that. He got this apart, and this plate on the Michigan one is a nice fit on the bearing, and we compared notes for sizes. So long story short, we'll be able to take the Michigan plate and put on this clutch assembly to resolve that looseness issue. Because as we were talking and comparing notes, I also noticed that this one, you can see there's that little bit of a step there where this bearing must have been running loose in there and wearing on there. Because this one, where the bearing is not loose in the bore like it should be, there is no step there, because this is a good part, and the Michigan one is just like that one, and the fit of the bearing in there is nice, so we'll use that part. He actually got since the big bearing splitter is back home, he actually took the bearing off of the Michigan shaft and cleaned up the bearing, and it looks like that bearing is also good. So we have a backup bearing if we need to, but like I said, as far as I know, these bearings are okay. I haven't cleaned this one up yet, but I'm pretty confident it's probably okay. I think the gear was marginal on the parts tractor, which we expected, but we got some good parts to work with, so that's good to know. So as soon as we get to meet up at some point, either I go back home or Dad comes out here, we'll be able to continue on with some of these projects. Got the new lower dash panels sandblasted, cleaned up. The new one and the original. I think I mentioned I got all the hardware for mounting them cleaned up. We got to make one bolt, but besides that, everything is good to go there. I think I'm going to tear into the governors next. I kind of just dug out what I have here for parts. I haven't done anything with these yet. The previous owner had took apart this governor for the 25 in the yard before I got it, and we have not even cracked open the governor for the 26 got in the garage here. So I kind of just want to get rolling on this just to kind of see what we have to work with, see what kind of parts we're going to potentially need. I know we got a few issues. This base casting, that should be attached to that, so it looks like this. It's broken. Luckily the Michigan parts tractor, that part is good, so we'll be able to use that one. But I kind of want to just take everything else apart, see what other issues we have to deal with, so we can kind of get a game plan going for if we need to make any parts, find anything. You guys know the routine. So let me kind of get organized here, start taking things apart, and I'll show you what I got. Okay, I'm sorting out the mess here. Those gears go something like that. That would be attached to, I believe, this end when that's underneath, and then that would all be inside of there. We'll confirm that when we take this one apart, because this one's still together. I said I didn't take this one apart, so I'm not sure I think this was on like that. It's a toasted bearing there. I think that would go up to there. We have another toasted bearing here. I'm not sure where that one went. If that was up on the top. And again, we'll figure that out when we take the other one apart. The gears are all junk in this one, but the Michigan ones I think were potentially good. And as far as I can tell, these ones are looking okay. And we do have a backup plan with some new gears if needed. So we'll keep that in our back pocket. This one is cracked and wore out. I was looking at the ends of these linkage. This goes to your throttle butterfly that we worked on, a week or two ago. The end on this one, I'm guessing this is not an original end. I'm thinking it should have these ball and socket type joints like these that I sourced from McMaster-Carr. Looks like that's what was on this one, and it's broken because I think the other end of that was on the throttle butterfly, if I remember correctly. And that's these ones, if you don't remember, these throttle butterflies. The governor controls that to essentially control your carburetor. The inside of this one is pretty much empty now because it had been taken apart. There's your fork here that would go to that. There is a spring down inside of there, if you can see in there at all. There we go, better light. It goes up, it goes from this arm on the shaft there, and it goes up to another littler arm, which goes to this shaft. This is what's left of the base of, there should be a little drip oiler like you find on like a hit and miss engine. I was missing both of those. All I have is the little base piece. I'm very fortunate there. I put a question out to my friend Lawrence with a picture that, with a couple of dimensions that Dave Harrington supplied to me. So you can see there, at least I knew what size it was, but there was no markings on that one, I guess. So Lawrence texted those pictures to a couple of his engine friends, and they were able to identify what it is. And one of his friends actually has a couple of them available. He like rebuilds those oilers. So we're gonna get a couple of them from him. So we got that missing parts solved. We'll hopefully meet up sometime this summer and get them, since I'm in no hurry. I don't need them now. We're not going to have them ship them to me or anything. One, because I'm not in a big hurry, and two, I don't want to take the chance of them being damaged in shipping or anything. So somebody will meet up with somebody over the summer, I'm sure, at a show or whatever, and we'll get them then. That'll be perfect. One less thing I have to worry about. So a big thumbs up and thank you to Lawrence and his friends for helping me out there. Finding one more part to these millions of parts I need to figure out. So one less thing I got to worry about. Let's see if we can start taking some more of this apart and see what else we got. Well, that went pretty well. Got this governor pretty much all apart. The only thing I haven't got out yet is this little rod with a couple of linkages. So I've discovered somebody's been here before and they've replaced, there should be little taper pins, right? They've replaced a lot of them with just nails, and that is the case with these. I'm going to bring it up to the work and use the little die grinder to grind the head, or the mushroomed end rather, over, out, off, whatever, so I can punch it through easier. Same with the end down in there. Same story, it's been replaced with a nail. So once I get that out, that'll be an empty casting. Got the shaft out of this part, same story, it's empty casting, ready to get cleaned up. That one, ready to get cleaned up. I got the ends off of the rod. I don't think that's original, I think that's been replaced. I'm guessing that should be these ends. I got the rest of the governor apart. Same story, instead of pins they have nails for the pins that were in the governor weights to hold them in the arms. Little cross pins. Press this arm off of the shaft. That shaft will need to be remade. That's in pretty poor shape. The pins and the weights and that all look good. Got this bearing off of this. That bearing will obviously need to be replaced. That one will have to be replaced. This part might have to be remade. It's pretty pitted. We'll need a new spring because the heat took all the temper out of that. It's not nearly as springy as it should be. So I'll have to see if I can find one that size or if I have to make one. Got this shaft all apart. I'm guessing we'll probably make a new one of them too. There's some significant wear. Yeah, that one's shot. I think there was some wear on. I thought there was another spot where it was worn, but anyway, that's an easy enough part to make. So, one governor basically apart, ready to start cleanup. I think I'll take this one apart next. Okay, this governor is coming apart. I got the cover cracked off the end of it now. Shouldn't say cracked. That's a bad choice of words. Taken off. No cracks. Cracks are bad. Say no to crack. So that's that broken part there we've talked about before. That should be attached to that. But we got a good one of them on the Michigan tractor. That shaft came out. Doesn't actually look terrible. We'll have to do final cleanup, but the gear isn't obviously shot like the other one. Same story with these gears. They look potentially usable. Cover looks pretty good. And first inspection of the inside looks pretty good too. At least there's oil and stuff in there. Not a tremendous amount of rust. So let's see if we can get the rest of it apart here. It's coming apart pretty good. Got the governor flyweight assembly out. It's all still seized. Bearings are junk. This looks really nice. We got a good spring to measure up now. Okay, getting the governor apart here, the flyweight assembly. I just used the puller to pull this assembly off. It was very lightly stuck, came off, no problem at all. Got the bearing off. So we're going to need two of these. They're Fafner 203H, I believe is what that is. Yeah, 203H. And we'll need four of these 201H's, Fafners. So we'll just see if we can find some of those. Like I said, there's two of these and one of these per governor, so we're doing 2 governors worth. So one thing I've noticed here is that we have a hairline crack in the casting here where this pipe fits into the cast. I don't think that's going to be an issue, but we'll get everything apart and clean it all up and inspect it more. Same old story. This casting on the Michigan tractor might be in better shape. We might be able to use that. I take back what I said earlier about somebody already being into that one and using nails. Well, I'm wondering if that's the way it was, because this governor has the same thing. They look like nails holding everything. Come on, focus. Everything together. So I don't know, maybe that's what they used. Anybody seen something like that before? Okay, all apart. And same old story. Why I like to take everything apart, whether or not it needs to be. Like this was in here, and for a second I thought, well, you know, I don't really need to probably take that out of there. As long as the shaft is okay, we could reuse that, right? Well, I did anyway, and here's a good example why. There's an oil groove that goes down inside of there. And of course, it's all full of rust and crust. So even if I did clean that out, are you going to be 100% confident that that whole oil groove is clean and you're not going to be contaminating your engine with ick? This way you know for sure. It took 2 seconds to put it in the press and press it out of there. It came out real easy. We got a real good pattern now to reproduce this part for the other governor, because that one was bad. Kind of a win-win-win situation. A couple more little observations I've made here. Differences between this governor and this governor. This housing has this little groove machined into it. This one does not. The hole for this tube is on the bottom, whereas on this one the hole is on the top. I'm guessing that's more appropriate, so the oil is flinging around in there and is coming from the oiler on the top here, dripping down, hitting the whole governor assembly, flinging around, lubing everything. A certain amount of it would collect in there to go to lube this shaft, I would imagine, is the purpose for that. And then any excess will run out the end here. Where this one, the lube would have to get splashed up from the bottom, I guess. I wonder if this was put together upside down originally. Let me know what you think there. I'll have to look at the parts book, see if there's any. I doubt it'll show enough detail to, to show where that's, how that's actually supposed to be, but something we'll have to think about. Well, until I get up to the shop and grind these last couple of pins and final assemble these last couple little things, I think we're about done with this governor stuff. So I think I'll probably wrap this video up here. I thank you all for watching. I hope to see you back again soon. Leave a comment below. Let me know what you think. See you later.